Welcome to Module 6 of CR370. This is about how then to teach. Now, teaching great science and technology usually involves group work. So this looks about how we can have effective collaboration, how we might design our lessons to facilitate that, and how we also will look at this whole group work to make them effective. So we're going to be looking at that, and we're finishing off with what I call a little bit of salt into how do you create a curious, investigative, engaged environment in your classroom, and also a safe one. So we're going to just finish with those two. So let's dive into what we're doing. And a cornerstone for the pedagogical approaches is this idea of group work. Now you're familiar with group work. So we're just going to recap about collaborative learning, have to reflect upon it, do a bit of what I call a PMI. Sometimes group work, and I'm sure you had this experience, is not been a positive experience, and sometimes it's been positive. So how do we actually make that work? So we're going to do a bit of a little bit of a analysis of that. Look at some strategies. Here's so many ways to have a look at group work and collaboration. Do a bit of a quiz, do a bit of an audit where you're at, and then move on to say, okay, so group work is one of those core pedagogies. How then can I make it work well? And here's some suggestions about how we can actually assign roles and functions in a group work, and how you can train your class to have highly effective group work. And the last one we're going to finish with is pulling from another learning area, and perhaps a business-centered focus about how we can create high-functioning teams and glean some ideas to say, that might be useful, and how I establish that in my classroom. So that's what we're going to look at, group work as a cornerstone. And the second one is, how do I then organise my classroom to facilitate an investigative nature or group work through? Now we're going to look at a number of templates which are out there that I've just found on from other education sites, and you see that they share a common sort of idea with the CHC template. So we're going to have a look at the CHC template, explore, engage, explore, and review, and say what might that be, engage for an investigation setting. So going through those here, and then we're going to say, okay, so let's critique what I consider an oldie but a goodie, a lesson where you're going to unpack the elements of this video and then critique it. And I think there's some gems here about what we can do to make your classroom organisation, and you'll be looking for what I call procedural and pedagogical strategies. And there's two things going on in this classroom to make it very highly effective. And this video outlines a number of different group work approaches that we're doing. So that's how to make group work translate lesson organisation. What are the procedures? What is the structure making that work? We're then going to go on to the inquisitive classroom. So I want you to expand your mind, expand your thinking here, and have a look through a jigsaw activity to look at some number of articles and videos that we might go through and say, okay, how can we make this inquisitiveness increase in my classroom? What sort of strategies or things or tricks or traits that I could do? And have a look at, okay, how we might then apply that for that. And one of the key aspects is questioning. How can you do that to draw your students into that story of investigation that you're looking at? A number of videos I'm going to get you to watch and report back on. And then last is reflect, what could be a takeaway? What could I then do? Final section is to be aware of this. And look, because you're doing activity, because you're using chemicals and things that can break and do, you need to be mindful of a safe working environment. So for here, we're going to cover those things about establishing clear expectations and rules, particularly for science, and what sort of safety factors you might want to consider for lab rules, and a risk assessment process that you might want to do in the lesson, prior to the lesson, in the lesson, and after the lesson. So that's how we'll finish. So this is this is all about establishing how can we make effective investigative group work classrooms.